Two Buffalo police officers have been suspended after disturbing videos showed officers pushing a 75-year-old man to the ground and leaving him there bleeding. This happened during a protest against police. The man is knocked down by two officers, and several others walked right past him without helping.
Two Buffalo police officers will now face criminal charges after they were caught on camera shoving that 75-year-old man.
We had two of our police officers who were charged and arrested this morning on assault in the second degree. This particular assault charge in the second degree is a felony.
President Trump tweeted, without any evidence, that the confrontation was a possible setup.
The president tweeted, without evidence, that the protester identified as Mr Gugino could be an Antifa provocateur.
Donald Trump tweeting a Russian conspiracy theory about police brutality. Can he stoop to a level any lower?
President Trump is taking heat after tweeting an unfounded conspiracy theory about the 75-year-old Buffalo protester shoved to the ground by police.
A tweet from the president. In it, he repeats a conspiracy theory.
President Trump is now pushing a conspiracy theory.
Donald Trump shared an unsubstantiated conspiracy theory on social media to basically justify elder abuse at the hands of Buffalo, New York police officers.
And now Donald Trump is actually attacking, wait for it, the 75-year-old guy who was put into critical condition.
Does the president regret tweeting out a baseless conspiracy theory about a 75-year-old protester on the morning of George Floyd's funeral?
The president was asking questions about an interaction in a video clip he saw, and the president has the right to ask those questions.
Well, President Trump's decision to tweet this conspiracy theory, as you may imagine, has been condemned in certain quarters. The former Republican Senator Jeff Flake says trafficking in conspiracy theories like these is beneath your office, Mr. President.
The claim mirrors a conspiracy theory that was originally posted to an anonymous conservative blog.
President Trump is now peddling a wild conspiracy theory.
Right-wing conspiracy theory on Twitter.
President Trump's completely unfounded, outright lying tweet.
The president was spreading a conspiracy theory started by far-right media sources.
Donald Trump is a liar and a conspiracy theorist and a dangerous individual.
The president is promoting a baseless conspiracy theory about 75-year-old Mr Gugino, who was pushed to the ground by officers during a protest in Buffalo.
New York Governor Andrew Cuomo demanded President Trump apologize.
President Trump did a tweet today that surprises me. There's no fact to any of it. He accuses this man of being associated with Antifa. No proof whatsoever. No fact, just an assertion.
Donald Trump yesterday spread a completely baseless conspiracy theory that Gugino was some part of Antifa setup of the police officers.
Trump has shared a ridiculous conspiracy theory to try to smear and trash the victim in this story.
You saw his head hit the pavement. You see blood on the pavement. Maybe he fell harder than he was pushed. How reckless, how irresponsible, how mean, how crude. I mean, if there was ever a reprehensible, dumb comment, and from the President of the United States.
The president's claims have no known basis in fact.
Donald Trump is a liar and a conspiracy theorist and a dangerous individual.
Unsubstantiated allegations and conspiracies about people who've been victimized by police brutality. He's an agent of chaos, and he should be institutionalized.
The video sparked cries of police brutality. But is there more to it than just that? Apparently quite a bit. OAN has covered this topic before, with even President Trump relying on our reports, and we can assure you that the information we're reporting on is accurate. For starters, despite his age, there's substantial evidence that Mr Gugino was an enthusiastic provocateur for the radical left who frequently went out of his way to confront or harass the police.
He says the protester is actually a known Antifa member. That's a lie.
He pushed for progressive causes, including fighting climate change, and official records show he was arrested at least 4 times in the past. Far from the kindly old man that many in the media are describing him as,
75-year-old elderly man pushed to the ground, seen bleeding from his ear as he's laying there. And somehow he's the bad guy, according to Trump and around 30% of this country.
His personal Twitter account is riddled with anti-police statements, including the sentiment, F the police.
I mean, everybody who watches The Young Turks knows I said that from day one. Deeply stupid, no strategy. It has taken 3.5 years for people to go, oh my God, he might not have any strategy at all. Of course! I've been telling you that for so long.
Had a reputation in the town as being someone who caused trouble, and even the mayor of Buffalo, Byron Brown, a Democrat, called him an agitator and a key and major instigator for those involved in the looting of the city.
What we were informed of is that that individual was an agitator. He was trying to spark up the crowd of people. That individual was an agitator. Again, that was a curfew violation.
Of course!
What we've seen in the community, when it has gotten dark, there is the potential for violence, that there's been vandalism, there have been fires set, there has been property vandalized, there have been stores broken into and looted. We wanted to end the potential for those kind of activities to take place, and according to what has been reported to me, that individual was a key and major instigator of people engaging in those kind of activities.
Going beyond that, Martin appears to have ties to Antifa, the violent terrorist group responsible for attacking innocent civilians at events around the nation. Martin was active in anarchy groups and even posted and contributed to an anarchist reading group.
He says the protester is actually a known Antifa member. That's a lie.
He was also active in the Flying Squirrel community space, a group for anarchists that was promoting an upcoming event called the Institute for Advanced Troublemaking, an anarchist summer school. The event featured the logo for Antifa.
He promote conspiracy theories, and as president of the United States, attack private citizens.
The president cited this thinly sourced segment on the pro-Trump TV network OANN. Even Mr. Trump's own advisors have questioned his actions, with one surrogate telling CNN the president should avoid giving an address to the nation on the subject of race, saying, quote, a speech lacking genuine compassion at any point would not help. He's just not genuinely compassionate.
Trump is just completely uncritically falling for obvious agitprop-style propaganda.
An arbiter has cleared 2 police officers in Buffalo who faced criticism for pushing a 75-year-old protester to the ground.
Of course!
An arbiter says the use of force was justified because the man refused to comply with orders and was acting erratically. The officers were suspended without pay and arrested, but a grand jury declined to indict them.
Those officers were cleared of any wrongdoing by an arbitrator.
They don't have the right to use unnecessary force, and they're going to be held accountable.
And both officers have been cleared of criminal charges, and today's arbitration ruling clears them of any department-related violations that could have got them fired. Arbitration is part of the police union's collective bargaining agreement with the city of Buffalo and operates similar to a court proceeding. The arbitrator agreed. In his ruling, Jeffrey Selchik said that Gugino, quote, was definitely not an innocent bystander and called the officer's use of force, quote, absolutely legitimate.
Of course!
A curfew had been declared following protests related to the death of George Floyd, and police were clearing the area outside Buffalo City Hall. Selchik found that Martin Gugino appeared to lose his balance after force was applied, which led to his fall.
It's taken almost 2 years, but the officers charged with shoving the police-hating provocateur, Martin Gugino, have finally been cleared of all wrongdoing. You might remember the story from back in June of 2020. One American News covered it extensively, and we were roundly blasted by the mainstream media for not jumping on their bandwagon and condemning the police officers for brutality out of hand. Officers Aaron Torgalski and Robert McCabe were denounced by extremists in the media after Martin Gugino, a longtime cop-hating activist, confronted the officers at a demonstration in Buffalo for George Floyd, whose death in police custody set off a year of looting and violence by domestic terrorists in Black Lives Matter and Antifa. A viral video showed Martin ignoring police orders to get out of the way, then suspiciously waving his hands over the officers' bodies, which, from the officers' point of view, could have looked as though he were reaching for their guns. In fact, Officer Turgalski said that he was actually concerned that Gugino was getting too close to his service weapon. The two officers responded by pushing Martin out of the way, but when he fell backwards and hit his head, fracturing his skull, the mainstream media crucified the officers in the court of public opinion. The officers were suspended without pay and were looking at felony second-degree assault charges. They were cleared by a grand jury in February. On April 8th, the state arbitrator ruled that the officers' use of force was absolutely legitimate and determined that 75-year-old Gugino was definitely not an innocent bystander. All of which we want to point out One American News reported on at the time and was lambasted for by the Marxist media. OAN also reported that Gugino had a troubling history with law enforcement, including being arrested at least 4 times. The state arbitrator says that based on the evidence, there's nothing to indicate the officers were trying to do anything more than move Gugino away from them, and that they had no choice but to move him since he refused to comply with their orders. With both officers being found innocent of all charges, this is yet another example where One American News accurately and fairly reported on the event, but was denounced by the mainstream media. As always, the radical left condemns anyone who questions a story, who digs deeper into a report than what the national headlines simply tell you to think. But for our efforts, OAN was attacked and criticized and harassed by Black Lives Matter apologists, with demonstrators actually rallying and protesting outside our news station, all for reporting what has now been proven to be totally factually correct. Will there be a retraction from the mainstream media? An apology for the appalling attacks against OAN? Of course not. Questioning the narrative is never rewarded, even though, as in this case, asking tough questions and not simply following the drones in the corporate media was completely justified. The officers were innocent. No police brutality was involved. And both Turgalski and McCabe have returned to full active duty, protecting and serving their community once again.
And it turns out the reporter who Donald Trump retweeted works for Sputnik, works for the Russian state-owned media company, Sputnik.